Steady overflowing, lost in the moment, I'm hoping you see my heart swollen. And you know this, you see it every day. Long distance over the phone, a point blank range. And it's strange to think that after all these years, it'd be you to rescue me from all the things I feared. Rejection, imperfection, never feeling like I was enough. You came to practice and supply me with that secret stuff. A potent potion of honesty and earnest emotion. Another hit of that love drug, nearly overdosing. It's like I hit with the love bug and I didn't know it. They told me that's just what love does and my mind's exploding. So when I tell you that you're cute and you give me that look, I paint a page in the story, your favorite book. Cause I'm just here to let you know the way you make me feel. Gonna give you more this time, this time, this time. Gonna give you everything and more this time, this time. Gonna give you more this time, this time, this time. Gonna give you everything and more this time, this time. Give you all you need this time. Everything you want this time. Give you all you need this time. Everything you want this time. And this time and next time on a downtime in the future, I want to give you everything, and this is proof here. You know the feeling sublime will never be lost for time.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome along to Hospital Podcast number 445, which does sound quite epic in some respects, but it's especially epic because we are joined live from, in fact, I hear Colorado in the United States from Mr. Duncan Winslow. Hello, mate.
Hey, how you been?
I'm good. So tell me, how come you're not in St. Louis? Why?
Yeah, it's like a vacation, I guess. I don't know. I keep thinking like, oh, we're just going for the weekend, but it's like actually, yeah, it's been a while since I had a vacation. So it's like we got away for a week.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And for those of us that are, well, I'm afraid my geography is not brilliant. So from St. Louis in Missouri, which way do you go to get to Colorado?
No, you go west and you drive for about 9 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a long Monday.
So like if you drive for 9 hours in the UK, you probably fall off the end of Scotland, but,
Yeah.
More or less. But I guess a 9-hour drive in America is not really that big, really. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you have to drive to get anywhere, especially when like you're in the middle of the country in like St. Louis, where I am.
What's that like? I've got my Google Maps open on screen, like I said, because my geography is rubbish. But
Hmm.
for instance, like if you drive sort of north, slightly northeast, you would eventually get up to Chicago, right? Is that right?
Yeah, it's like 4 hours
Okay.
from St. Louis.
And so what's it been? I mean, what's it been like this last sort of 12, 15 months or so, kind of pandemic restrictions and everything? Like for you personally, what's it been like in St. Louis and in Missouri?
It's I feel like everyone's just like, yeah, it's been a year. It's been something
Mm,
of just being like stuck in the house. Just I guess it works out, kind of being a musician. You don't need to go anywhere unless you're
hmm.
gigging, which is like the worst part. But you can just sit at home and do stuff or write. But it's like when that's the only thing you can do,
Yeah.
even that seems a little monotonous at times. But it's been all right. Light at the end of the tunnel right now.
Yeah, right. And then like say like pre-pandemic, like
Mm.
for you, what's a regular week or month like sort of pre-pandemic for you in St. Louis? Are you still like, as you say, you still kind of like pretty much at home making music, or do you travel around much? What's it?
For me, the like years before this, I was still at university, so that's
Okay.
what I'd be spending most of my time doing. And I just finished that up in December, which was like finishing school in like the middle of all this was not something no one ever prepared you for.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah, I mean, I guess day to day would have been like school, just
Mm.
work after school, work, then in between all that, music.
And in terms of like, maybe I guess it's a dumb question, but what's it in terms of St. Louis or in terms of like the state? What's it like for drum and bass there? I mean, is it a small community? Is
Mhm.
there?
I think it's kind of small communities spaced out because
Mm,
everything is so spaced out.
right.
Like it's hard to have. I know people kind of reference like the USD&B scene, but like if you try and break that apart, it's like it's the scene like LA, then it's the scene in Denver,
Yeah.
then like Austin, Texas, then New York, and everything is no matter what hours apart from each other, whether you're flying or driving. But everyone kind of knows each other because of the internet and like
Yeah.
groups and keeping together.
But there's a and I mean I really get that. As a result, I mean, like do you have many parties or any parties in St. Louis, or if you want to go out to really hear some drum bass music
Mm.
on a system, do you need to travel a significant distance?
Um, I think it depends. It's definitely in St. Louis like a small, tight knit like local scene
Mm,
that you can definitely hear. It's not like a huge party. It's always very much like everything's kind of like small,
mm,
maybe 100 around there. People, kind of intimate kind of setting, and a lot of people are just kind of like, oh, what's this? I've heard this music, down the street. Let me just walk into this bar or wherever and see. And then there's the usuals that you will see there are usually helping put the whole thing together,
yeah,
or
yeah.
just like also DJs or musicians or something related to putting the whole thing together. That's kind of
Mm.
how it is here.
And I guess because you see, I guess I mean, particularly for people over here in the UK, but I mean, for many other sort of drum-based communities, I've always kind of felt that it's really hard for us to get any kind of understanding of what it's actually like, for the North American scene, because,
Yeah.
like you described, you're kind of looking at there are some very long-standing
Mm.
communities, but they're in a whole bunch of cities that are often like flights apart. So
Yeah.
it's like it's like a whole bunch of different drum and bass scenes in a whole
Mm.
bunch of different cities, and I felt like that's always been maybe. I've always imagined that was maybe the hardest thing for whether you're a fan, a listener, a producer, a promoter. That's maybe
Mm.
been continues to maybe been one of the bigger challenges for the people over there to really kind of feel connected to each other.
Yeah. It's especially like where I am is basically like a flyover city if anyone's touring.
What was it that then inspired someone like you to get into writing and producing this music?
Uh, Probably the internet, just that that's how I'd say because there's no like in-person way I would have noticed. It was definitely like, I guess, planting like the seeds, if you want to call it that, was just like video games and stuff. That's how I learned about drum and bass before I knew what it was. Then like getting into everything around like the 2010s when the whole EDM boom thing happened over here, and I just kind of heard about it a bit more, but then didn't pay any attention to it because it's too fast, you know, every American's complaint.
Yeah.
Until you get really into it. It's like, it feels like, oh, this is like, the more I listen, the more I started trying to do it, which was, you know, a difficult task because it's just so different and so technical. But then it relates to a lot of things like I grew up with like jazz and soul music and stuff like that. So as soon as I found like that crossover, that's when I really got into it. And then from there, it was just like, maybe this is for me, I think. Yeah.
But I guess this was, you know, as you're describing, it's essentially just kind of like, you know, consuming it, maybe primarily kind of from the internet. And I guess this is selfishly for me personally, you know, like my way of getting into this kind of music was record shops, pirate radio, and parties and festivals and word of mouth, and you know, and I guess, to be honest, I don't necessarily think this is something that's exclusive to, you know, North America at all. You know, I understand it's kind of more of a maybe phenomenon of the last sort of 5 or 10 years, but I guess it, to an extent, with this, you know, because it's not easy to make this kind of music, right? You know, it's you know, it does require, you know, a lot, not just dedication, but a lot of, you know, certain dexterity with programming and how to really get to grips with the tempo and the bass lines and the kind of sound design. But I guess it kind of feels as though you almost like are denied some of those other aspects of the, even just like kind of how you hear it. You know, because I guess we all hear music, you know, we hear music differently in real time on a system, at a distance, in a festival, in a sweaty basement, in a record store, in the car, you know, and all those different things. And I guess, but when it's kind of primarily coming via a screen and some headphones, or, you know, it's so I guess it, I don't know, you tell me, I guess it requires a certain kind of passion or dedication to kind of go, do you know what? I need to do this. I really, really want to do this, right? You know, like to have that spark, to be inspired.
Yeah, I definitely think that's what happened to me, because it was, for me, getting into it, to hearing anything live on like any like system bigger than my car, it was years. So definitely like that passion of just being into it, I think was right, but maybe like a year or so, or maybe it was 2020, like right before everything closed down. And I finally like wasn't in like my college town, which is, it's just country music and pop music. There was no way I was going to hear any drum and bass ever. Right. Yeah, in like middle of Missouri, like rural. Yeah. But like how you hear people's stories, like, how'd you get into it? Oh, I went to a live show and I heard the music live, because that's how you should experience it. And like everything clicked then for like everyone's stories. And like when it finally happened to me, and then not only that, I'm hearing my own track, like, oh, this is a completely different experience than my headphones or the car or something. It's like now I get it, like 4 or 5 years into this right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It definitely had like a moment, like just listening to stuff live, and then start like listening to my own things on like these huge systems. It's like, maybe I should write something else that's more impactful now that I can actually feel the bass or something like that. Or just like, you immediately want to change things for like that environment, because it is like a completely different context. Like, and maybe that's, I don't know, why I write more like kind of listener tuned, because that's the only context I've ever had. But listening more like live settings, like, oh, now there could be more, I don't know, more of anything. I don't know, whatever, like a whole new factor, I guess, to my sound I can start thinking about that applies to like a live setting or just a big system, that kind of thing.
Do you think so? I mean, is it possible that the kind of I don't know, like, you know, the prospect of maybe traveling and maybe playing out, let alone being able to experience a few other events, you know, I don't know, maybe that could then specifically kind of feed into your songwriting.
Yeah.
You know, because I can really understand why in certain situations, as you just said, maybe if you are fairly regularly kind of home based and home studio based, it can maybe dictate or suggest a different approach to the music making process and the kind of landscape that you stitch together.
Yeah, I think so. I think like I'm just now, for whatever reason, putting that together. It's like, oh, maybe that's why. It's like that's why I am the way I am. Like, I feel like because I could be like in any other city probably here, like in a big city with like an actual market for just electronic music in general, and I might have a completely different like take on things or like view. Like I could be in New York or LA, and I could probably still have like the live like stories of just hearing things live down the street or digging in a record shop. Like I tried digging in one here, and there's no drum and bass at all.
Although I bet there's some other amazing music though.
Yeah.
Great samples.
I mean, just now, like it's funny because like my mom is starting to recognize, like not recognize, but just like saying, "Oh, I'm starting to see your face everywhere." And then her being my mom is like, "So you're not going to move to the UK away from me, are you?" It's like, well, hold on. It's like it's not that far yet.
Is your mom and family, are they also in St. Louis?
Yeah.
Are you actually native to the city?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've actually been there your whole life?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, let's not worry your mum too much. I'm sure there's no need to make any hasty decisions.
Right.
Obviously, this is very much a podcast I'm delighted to say, to welcome you to the Hospital Records family. We are absolutely delighted to bring you onto the roster as one of our artists. And so with that, we wanted to obviously get to know you a bit more and also naturally play some music. And coming up next, happily, one of my particular favorites, another Gold Fat release, but this is Mumbles of Grace from Winslow. So that was Mumbles of Grace on the emerging, highly anticipated Goldfat label from our very good friend and recording artist Johnny Mikiss. So tell me, how did your kind of contact with Johnny begin?
It's gonna hate me for telling the story, but it was kind of years. I think 2-3 years ago. I think I was like the annoying kid that was trying like, how do I send you demos? How can I send you tracks and stuff? And he just like flat out ignored me. And like thinking about it now, it's like I wasn't ready. I was the annoying kid who was a little too excited. But then like a year or two ago, I think it was 2019, he just messaged me like out of the blue. It's like, hey, we're starting Goldfat back up because they took like a little break for a while. And he asked me if I had any tracks. So I sent him maybe 4 or 5. And then he picked like a 16-bar loop, which turned into Swing and Miss, which was my first release on Goldfat. And then another one, which is kind of finished. And then we just started working and talking from there. And so like every month or few weeks, he's just like, you got any more tracks? You got any more tracks? Like before everything, like with you guys, he's just like, hey, before you sign that, do you have any more tunes for us? I'm like, you picked a weird time. Yeah.
But I can understand, like, you know, given the kind of musical soundscapes that Johnny works on, you know, your kind of sound would be something that would very naturally appeal to him and kind of fit in with the kind of pot of music that he would be looking for. Before that first release on Goldfat, what else had been happening? You know, because you had some releases before, right?
I think before that, I was just kind of releasing things myself.
Okay.
Yeah, because like before getting completely like entrenched, I guess would be the word, like in drum and bass, I was like kind of producing like house and some other stuff, and you know, whatever was basically popular at that time. And I was just bored and kind of got burnt out about it. And then somehow, like after a year of not writing anything and just kind of trying to find, I guess, myself musically, or if that's the way of putting it, then I like found my way into drum and bass.
Okay.
More of like from a writing and stuff, just listening. And then because I had all that, it had been like 6 years at that point of like trying to do like the get releases and do all this, like the whole hustle thing where you have to put out a track every week or you think people are going to forget about you. No one's paying attention to you in the first place. You don't learn that until it's too late and you're already burnt out. But yeah, so after all that, I was like, I'll just release things try and like learn the whole process myself of not really like starting a label, but I guess it's kind of the same thing, like, or similar, like that whole, just the whole process of like curating yourself and trying to put together projects, because I would always try and put at least 3 or 4 tracks together. So I would have to be very, not critical, but just like, is this what I want to put out? I want to make sure these tracks fit together somehow. And I got to design the artwork.
Sure.
However, like simple Microsoft Paint it looked, it was mine, you know, but just that whole process has kind of, I think, gave me a better view of like how things are working on a larger scale, like now.
And before, like, as you said, you know, like before those kind of, I don't know, those sort of different electronic, you know, experimentations, you know, you mentioned like making some kind of house and other tempos. I mean, what were you like a piano prodigy age 3, or how did you get into music? Was it a musical house growing up?
Yeah. My mom sang like the church choir, and she played piano a little bit, but you know, trying to get her to play anything now, it's just like it has to be like the things, stars have to align to get her to keep me in front of the piano. And my dad sang a little bit, played saxophone, played piano, all listened to a lot of music. And I think just me being curious, that's what got me into music a lot, especially like in school. I think that's why I started playing instruments and stuff, because, you know, they just come around, because when you're like in the 3rd grade, you're 7 or 8, you don't really know anything. They're like, do you want to play these instruments? Like, I don't know what that is, but it makes noise, so I'm just going to try that.
And I'm right in thinking that in the end, your instrument was the viola, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. From a young age?
About the same time. I think I was 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you still play now, right?
Yeah.
And you also, am I right in saying that you teach as well? You teach music part-time, or?
Yeah. So because I just like graduated, it was kind of part-time, like substitute. But now I'm going to be teaching like middle school, so 12, 13, maybe 14-year-olds. Yeah, orchestra.
Blimey. That sounds both exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. The closer it gets to August, like, am I sure I can do this, or I want to do this?
Because I don't know, like that sounds like that kind of mid-teenage years. That's actually pretty challenging. And you're going to teach them orchestra, so you're going to have a whole bunch of them in a room.
Yeah.
And this is where you kind of like start telling them, okay, kids, today orchestra is going to be about drum and bass, right?
Yeah, and at some point I have to work it in somehow. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds amazing. So let us let's dig into another track. Maybe one of, I have to say, I do love good titles. Now you do come up with some cracking song titles. And you had a release on Pilot Recordings, the UKF label, not so long ago. I think that was last year, back in 2020.
Yeah.
And this is what we're going to listen to now. And this is the sound of A Man and His Kettle.
everything you ever wanted shows up.
So yes, there you go. Great tune, even better title. Why? Any particular reason why? You were just feeling inspired when you were kind of making your 6th cup of tea of the day, or what?
No, it was an entire thing, and I think that's kind of how I ended it. I think it was around September or something. And I was just kind of bored one day, and I made it was a joke. I made a joke on an Instagram story that I was putting a mug of water in the microwave to make tea. And I knew everyone in the UK is asleep. Let me just do this. No one will care. And I woke up the next day with almost 100 messages. Like, what are you doing? Just complaints and threats from friends, but still what is going on? This is a joke, but it got way out of hand. And I just, it grew legs and took off. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna just take this wherever it goes. I already had the track already, and Pilot was just looking for things, and I was just trying to finish it up. It's I should just name it this and do a whole thing around it. And they didn't say no. It's are you sure? So yeah, we did that whole thing, and I had an idea for the artwork, and because I photography is a thing, but then also jokes and just very bad, I don't know, kind of comedies is my thing. So I just ran with it even more.
But I mean, I have to say, I mean, it's well, look, it's refreshing, right? I think, whether you've been in drum and bass for 5 years or 25 years, something that can be leveled at the kind of communities that it's a bit serious. It can be a bit po-faced. I think it's fair to say that certainly mid-late 90s, it did feel a bit like that. And so your sense of humor and your character and personality, which really, really comes through in the music and the song titles, is very, very refreshing. And I feel like it's also maybe almost encapsulated in your YouTube channel. Yeah. Which now, I mean, let's talk a bit about that. I mean, when did you start that? Is that about 3 years ago?
Yeah, I think about 3-4 years ago at this time.
Okay. And so what prompted that? Maybe it's a dumb question, but what was it that made you think, okay, I need to start this?
I think it might have been in the beginning, it was just kind of boredom. Me, I know that's really how a lot of things start for me. It's I think I was just maybe writer's block, that kind of thing. So it's I need something to take my mind off not being able to, or not having any ideas about writing music. So let me just try, making a tutorial or something about. And it was like start with like the best intentions. Like I want to do this, and I have this schedule, and it's like I made one video, and then like a few months passed. Then made one, then like months and months passed. Like I don't know, but like I would always reach like this point where I would be like, I don't know, fired up to do to it because it was different. But it's also like video editing and stuff like that is it's a lot of like songwriting is you're pulling out ideas out of like nowhere and you're trying to put them into something digestible, I guess is a way. Yeah. And I think that's what drew me to it. Then when things started growing a bit more and I started put a bit more thought into it, like there's millions of tutorials about anything. So like, what can I do differently?
Yeah. Is it out of interest? Is it something that your students are aware of?
No, not really.
Do you think
not yet, at least? Yeah,
no, not yet.
Yeah.
I'd be kind of fascinated to know kind of like what their perspective was like. You know, after seeing you in orchestra class, and then kind of like coming across one of your tutorials about ranking drum and bass artists unfairly.
Oh yeah, and there's that one, the goofy side. Yeah.
But come on, I mean, like this is great. I mean, you know, like we said. I mean, we both know that. Well, I mean, look, people in music can take themselves a little too seriously. We can all take our careers maybe a little too seriously. We all need, you know, we do desperately need, especially now in this last sort of 16 months or so. We know we do need a lighter side to things, and I think, you know, it's also, I guess, you know, for me that over the years there has been a time that drum and bass is the kind of music that can suffer from not just a lack of personality, but like almost just like faceless artists, you know, where you just don't have any idea who the people are, you know. You sadly assume it, you know, because often just a bunch of blokes, and but maybe who don't perhaps have a great deal to say, but there's lots and lots of music. And you know, I wonder whether, I think I was watching one of your recent uploads, you know, earlier today, and I think within it you kind of referenced how early on in your first sort of tutorials you were a bit shy, you didn't really, you know, you didn't really have a great deal to say, and you were kind of making a video about that, you know, and like I get it, trust me, like, but it's great because I mean, hopefully. I mean, in listening to the things that you say, I know that a big thing for you is just encouraging other artists.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, encouraging other writers, of course, through tutorials, but maybe not just that, you know, whether it's just actually how we see ourselves or how we hear music or how we maybe present ourselves. And has it been something that, you know, through the YouTube channel that you've been able to maybe sort of build up a bit more of that kind of community around the videos where that kind of conversation can actually kind of develop and continue?
Yeah, I think it's been like, I think that's why it's kind of been like a wholly positive experience, is because like a lot of the things, I'm not trying to say like this is the way to do stuff all the time or anything like that. It's just like, here's some ideas that kind of worked for me. Like you're seeing me like test out things basically. I mean, live almost. Like I can say an idea. If you can look through like Instagram of me trying that idea, and sometimes it fails, and then sometimes, you know, it works out. Like the whole kettle thing, just me being goofy, and like at first, sometimes you get like, are you just trying? Are you just like putting this together? Like, is this a whole thought or is this you? I'm like, no, this is just me, but being a bit more open and trying to just, like you said, to show a bit of personality. Like sometimes I know if I'm like going too far, or like I don't want it to seem like a gimmick, or like I'm like, this guy, he's just trying to be this way. It's like, no, like once we started having conversations with the people who are like curious, like, no, you actually just kind of like this.
Well, yeah, but it's also, because it's being honest, and it's just being real, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like one of the things that I like in particular, you know, you upload a video about getting your demos heard, which my guess would be probably one of the single most important things that emerging artists want to hear about, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, generally, it's not an exact science, and it can be kind of quite random. And I believe I'm right in saying that one of your pieces of advice was just to kind of just to try and establish some form of a kind of relationship with the person that you're approaching.
Yeah, that's the biggest, I think, like thing that I learned is, I mean, you can do the whole demo inbox thing, and that works. Labels, they do. It's just labels get like hundreds or thousands of demos, and to sift through them. And the best way, like, to get kind of picked out of that, or just recognize, is like if the person that's looking through it already knows your name. Just like, you're scrolling through what is a label engine or something. Oh, I know this guy. Let me just listen to this, even if it's not ready or something like that. Like, up there, you have this person, you have your idea of this person. It's like, oh yeah, so I know them. They're pretty cool, or they, seen that way or something like that. So
yeah, and I guess within that, and it's the kind of recognition factor. But I guess also, as I think you were sort of saying on one of your uploads, that it's recognition, but also how you kind of present yourself, which is something all of us need to keep learning as we go through life in whatever we're doing in our careers. But it's like, you get to know someone, but don't tell them your life story. Don't tell them that you've had 137 releases on 137 labels. And just kind of be like a friendly face with like I don't know, like a 5 minutes worth of kind of input and inquiry, and then just kind of leave it and understand how to kind of navigate those sorts of dynamics.
Yeah, I mean, it's you can get a message just like, hey, how you doing? And it's like, you immediately go look up who that person is, like their profile or something. It's like, and like a lot of people are aware, and sometimes like you might not get it. It's like, I know why you're talking to me, because that I'm like on this label or this or that, and which isn't a problem at all. I mean, that is what it is. But don't immediately go like, hey, how you doing? Okay, can you sign me to this? It happened.
Or can I have this person's phone number?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, there's a way to ask, but you have to work into that, and it's not something you can look up, especially like how to work my way up into this area. It's like, no, you just have to, I think, kind of like I said, just try and just make a friend and like be a person in like the process, because we're not, like, for example, like I'm talking to you, Chris, I'm not talking to hospital, like there are people that are making everything happen. So it's better to get to know the people instead of like treating everything as like an entity, or like this can get me that kind of thing.
Yeah. And like, just like, thinking about kind of some of those relationships, I'm always interested to know, like, especially right now, I mean, are there any particular, are there any sort of current or even maybe emerging artists in North America, particularly that you rate? I mean, I'm sure that you rate as people, but also, of course, that you rate as, as writers and artists.
One guy right now who's just like you're coming out of like nowhere with everything is Colby Echo Brown. Like, he just had his EP on the North Quarter. Remix, or I think on Overview. He's got something coming on 1985. Just like, he doesn't say anything to anybody, or maybe I'm just like not privileged to that information yet, but just out of nowhere, he just comes out of with all these tracks, and it's like, okay, wow. And then there's, I don't know where he's from, but Alpharhythm, he was also on the Future Symptoms project a few months ago, and he's doing really well. Then there's Black Lab, the two guys from Las Vegas. Pretty sure. And they've been working with Sullivan for a while, so they're kind of like, I think. But that's the thing. Like, I struggle to think of people sometimes, like, especially new people, because there's so many DJs, but like producers who are just like seriously trying to. Which I say, and I always have to like caveat that or something, like, there's no wrong with like having fun and things like that. Like, that's how everyone starts, just like messing around. But there aren't a lot of people who are like really at trying to produce right now, at least over here that I know of. or that are like not strictly drum and bass, but like very focused into drum and bass. There's a lot of older guys, like you can name all people all day, but like the newer guys.
Yeah. And any out of interest, any kind of like new artists or emerging artists from outside of North America, like anywhere else around the world? Anyone else in particular that you're feeling right now?
Askell and Allaire from Finland.
Yep.
Yeah, those are so fun. Like we've been working on stuff lately, and they're just like super fun to talk to, and just like bouncing ideas off, and just So I'm really excited to see like what they're doing as well.
Yeah. Great. Well, look, Askell and Allaire on Solvent, and delighted that you quite recently had your EP on Solvent, the Mad Flavors EP.
Yeah.
And from that, we're now going to just dip into Lost in the Black Lodge.
Have you ever had a dream? And suddenly, you realise what's happening doesn't even make any sense. And you realise that you're dreaming. If you know that you're dreaming, then you can control what's going to happen next. Have you ever had a dream? And suddenly, you realise what's happening doesn't even make any sense. And you realise that you're dreaming. If you know that you're dreaming, what's going to happen next?
So there you go. Lost in the Black Lodge on Solvent. That's from Winslow's Mad Flavors EP. What about, I don't even maybe dare ask, but what about coming over to the UK? Got any tickets?
Not yet, but I'm just thinking about it, always thinking about it. I mean, there is hopefully happens. Weekend in the Woods. I'll be there for that. And anything after, if I can just fit it in.
Have you been before?
No. Really want to though.
Yeah. Wow. So, and I mean, I imagine, just as a, as a citizen, but obviously as an artist and as a fan, of all sorts of music. I mean, what would you be thinking? It's like, if you could, I don't know, like if you could have 6 weeks or 8 weeks in the UK,
Yeah.
what would be your kind of some of your go-to places? And I'm not thinking specifically and only London, but like what would you be really hungry to go see and experience in the UK?
I don't want to like cheat and just say anything I can, but yeah, definitely meet everyone that I've kind of built relationships with over the past few years. Just gonna have one big hangout. That would be pretty great. Or just like couch surf if I have to. Just like, I'm gonna stay over your house for this week or these few days, and just like visit, London. Definitely go to Bristol. Further north, Manchester, anywhere go. Just kind of explore around too.
Yeah.
And just see what there is to see,
I guess it must feel, I guess it must, it must really feel quite curious when, not specific to the pandemic, but of course, when you're living on the other side of the world, you've probably been building, friendships and relationships, I guess, with a whole bunch of people in the UK for years now.
Yeah.
And then maybe the prospect of meeting a whole bunch of them at one party or in one city must be quite something.
Yeah, it's like, it's always like, when you come over here, we're gonna do this and this. Like, people have these itineraries for me. Like, you were complaining about our food the other week, so we're gonna make sure you eat this and you try this, and we teach you how to make a proper cup of tea. And like, all right, just I'll make sure I get enough sleep and we can do all that. Yeah.
And I guess in all honesty, there's quite, as you know, there's quite like a drum and bass roadmap, that you could really stitch together. As you say, of course, Bristol, Manchester, but then you start digging in, and there's so many other places. In terms of your DJing, you've been DJing for a while, or have you not really had the opportunity to do much outside of streams in the occasional party in St. Louis?
Yeah, it's kind of been that, just because I've been not tied up. I chose to go to school. So, but it's like, you can do one or the other. And especially like when you're in the middle of nowhere, you only really do one. So, but yeah, there have been in like not this last year, but like year before that, 2018, 2019, just kind of sporadic kind of live gigs around like my school schedule. Definitely streaming and stuff, because that's the easiest thing.
Sure.
Like, you get done with any kind of homework or class, you can just go stream, even though it's just like you and your friends watching. But then that still helps. And then just a few weeks ago was like our first kind of like the weekly that was here in St. Louis like had their first like live show back. Okay. And it was so weird. Like the entire time, like, we're all just kind of hanging out. I'm ordering a drink. I'm hearing music. Somebody just made me go on stage because somebody was late for a half hour. Like, it's oddly normal, but it's also, it doesn't feel like I should be doing this. Like, I'm supposed to be in the house, but like, no, like everything's opening back up, and this is what we've been working for. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, listen, let's cross all our fingers that the Weekend in the Woods happens, and that we can hang out together. We can have fun meeting a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
That would be an absolute pleasure. One thing I haven't just asked you about, I haven't asked you about vocals, because you are your own vocalist often.
Yeah, that was a pandemic project, I guess you can call it that. It's like some people picked up woodworking, some people picked this. I was like, maybe I have this microphone. And I do have a little bit of experience like singing and just doing vocal things, I guess. So there's no one here, just in my room by myself. No one can, if it's bad, you don't have to hear it. If it's all right, maybe after a lot of thinking, I'll send it to somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been kind of the thing in kind of the last year, is just building confidence and skill at that, because I've been, I guess, singing like choirs and stuff since I was a kid. Like, I've had like coaches and stuff, and so I know how to like basically like critique myself and kind of coach myself to a point. And I know like how, and just kind of figure out like the real small like ins and outs of this is how you should do things with your voice and stuff like that. I want to improve with this. This is how I should practice. I have that from just like lessons and stuff, even on other instruments and things. I'm like, I can do this. I just need to, trial by fire. Just hear myself enough times that I get used to it.
Yeah.
And just practice. Yeah. So that's kind of been a thing. I think it's getting better. Yeah.
Is it, out of interest, is it something that you always and only do on your own in your own studio?
So far, yeah.
Okay, so you haven't yet been recording vocals with a whole bunch of people in the same room?
No, not yet. Outside of, I guess, like school choir, we record stuff, but then like the focus isn't on me. And that's all right. I can do that. But now it's like, Duncan, you are doing it. This is your voice. Like, be nice, please.
And it's like, what's great for me is that, I mean, I'm trying to kind of think back, but maybe it's actually as long as 10 years ago. But I remember a time when, in drum and bass specifically, one or two producers for the first time started to sing on their own tracks, and I'm thinking of like Dominic Caliber,
right?
And I mean Tony, and because as you're probably aware, for really up until relatively recently, producers don't do that. No, right? You're and it's often a dude, sadly, but it's like, the producer is the person behind the desk, and the producer reaches out to singers. And then there was this gradual kind of shift of like, oh, hold on. And then a couple more people did it. And now, happily, it seems to be something that like, sure, do your own vocals.
Yeah.
And happily, I guess maybe you're part of that emerging wave of artists for whom it's like, maybe, you need, as you say, you need to build confidence, but maybe it feels as though maybe now in 2021, there's far less of a kind of less stigma, or no, it's just, sure. It's great. It's great to be in that, I think, in that kind of place where hopefully it can be an instinctive thing, hopefully, or a natural thing, even if you're just trying it out once, or you can like, I'm going to do this whenever I feel like it.
Yeah, it's definitely just like that. It was just trying and experimenting, and then having like those examples or kind of influences, like you said, like Caliber, that's one person I've always thought of, and then Tony, and then seeing other people do it. I think it was Fred V.
Yep.
When he started doing his own vocal stuff, like, okay, I started building like this idea of, because it's not like singer, songwriter, drum and bass, but like, almost in a way, or singer, producer, I guess it would be the way of putting it. But it can be a thing. And I kind of fight with that now. It's like, all right, here I am writing the tune, doing the vocals for it. And then it's like, I'm mixing my own track. It feels so like meta in a way. But I mean, it's only weird because not a lot of people have done it so far, but it's not weird because there's something wrong with it in a way.
Out of interest, in terms of like, if you don't mind me asking, like in terms of like being really objective about your own vocals, how easy or impossible is that when you're the producer?
It's so hard. I think that was like the hardest thing was like get used to my own voice. Just I think with anybody. And the one thing that helped with that is like the YouTube videos for like 2 years before that. It's like I'm just used to hearing my voice over and over and editing and stuff like that.
Right.
So it wasn't too much of a shock. But then it's like, oh, now you're trying to sing. Why are you doing this? And that like little voice in your head. But yeah, after a while, I was just like,
out of interest, what did your mum think seeing as she's singing?
Oh, I actually don't think she's heard any yet.
Oh man, come on!
Yeah,
you've not heard it?
Not any of the singing ones, not yet. Because
I need her email address. Yeah. I'm gonna send her a whole bunch of links. Come on, she needs to hear it. I mean, they've heard your music, or they've just not. But they've not heard your singing.
No, not yet. Okay. Because she's still like, how does Spotify work? Why can't you just make me a CD? And like, I got you right there. I don't have to do it just yet, but eventually she'll, figure it out, or I'll just, show her once I cross that bridge.
I mean, like, in all honesty, I can kind of also imagine it being quite kind of daunting, actually playing your music, let alone playing your own vocals to your parents. It must be quite
Yeah, I'm still like that. Like, oh yeah, like just friends. Like, you write music? Oh, let me hear it. It's like, I'll send you a link when I'm not standing right next to you, so I don't feel just like weird or self-conscious. But I'm getting better about it.
Very, very cool. Listen, we're going to play another track. I think also off the Mad Flavors EP. This is the Awesome Express.
Positive vibes. Kill them with positive vibes.
Well, listen, Duncan, thank you so much for, well, frankly, I didn't realise, but taking time out of your Colorado vacation is very kind of you. Thank you so much. And it's an absolute delight to talk to you. And I must also say, we are chuffed to bits that you have joined the roster and that you are now a hospital artist. That is a fantastic thing. We should just take a minute to, I think I'm allowed to talk about the fact that you have your debut release coming. It is, when's it coming? It's coming on the 9th of July.
Yeah.
On Hospital. That would be your debut solo release. It's called the Sandalwood Nights EP. I haven't even asked you why it's called the Sandalwood Nights EP.
Oh man, I'm terrible. It was so hard to come up with a name. I don't know why, but yeah, I think it just kind of. I thought about it as it just kind of encapsulates like this whole journey of writing music. Like, so Sandalwood's like the street I grew up on.
Yeah, nice.
Night is where everything is, where I started writing music, just in the middle of the night. Nice. Yeah, and spending entirely too much sleepless hours just twiddling away and trying to write music, and then all like, was it 10 years later? Here it is, like a thing. Yeah. And
out of interest, any particular? Do you have like a kind of like a list on your studio wall of people that you want to collaborate with, or you like a wish list like that?
Me and Johnny Micas have been talking about it more and more over like the past year, eventually doing it. And then I think you guys suggested it, so that would probably be happening. Then there's always like the dream collaborations of like Spy would be really awesome to work with. I've talked to me and Kino have talked a lot in the past year about working on stuff.
Right.
So hopefully that'll happen. Yeah, and just honestly anyone. at this point. I like just seeing what happens.
I mean, there's a long list. There's a whole bunch of people out there,
a whole lot
like,
of people,
like potentially just waiting to work together. Before we go, anyone from St. Louis in particular, or anyone from the YouTube channel that you want to shout out?
Man, oh my God,
you should have had a list.
Yeah, I mean, I say one person, I'm leaving out 20. So yeah, definitely. At home, my good friend Dave goes by. He also writes music under the name No Taker. He's been in a lot of things. He's like, we started about the same time in like 2011, and we've just been like competition and friends just in music. And even before that, like when we were kids. Then there's the whole group that I've like sort of made around like the YouTube channel, which is called Bad Snares Anonymous right now. And we're all just it's like a big huge. It
has a logo, right? The BSA logo, right?
Yeah, very cool. That's if I was wearing a hat, that'd be the one, because it's gotten to that point. Yeah, like there's a lot of people there, and like a lot of good friends who have just like helped me get to this point. And just like you said earlier, it's like they'll tell me when something's bad or not it, but they'll also tell you when like things are good. Yeah.
Great. Fantastic. Well, listen, I appreciate your time. It's great to see you. We're going to play out this very special Welcome Winslow podcast with your remix of Tides by Newtone, which was and is on the Hospital 25 box set, our anniversary release this year. So listen, man, let's cross our fingers. I would love to be seeing you in September at the Woods. That would be something very special. But take care, enjoy your holiday, and we'll catch up really soon.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
See you.
Give it back to me. Please return my mind. I sleep restlessly. This isn't what love defined. Give it back to me. Please return my mind. I sleep restlessly. This isn't what love defined. Give it back to me. Please return my mind. I sleep restlessly. This isn't what love defined. Please return my mind. Bridges and lights, ripples and tides, a constant reminder of a divide. Towers built to the sky, looming over my tortured soul, killing time on Ludlow, trying to drown out my sorrow. And previously, I fought the city, the streets did sing, but the sirens and screams dominate, so deafening. Bridges and give it back to me. Please return my mind. I sleep restlessly. This isn't what love defines.